Hey guys, Pieguyrulz here, and welcome back to Nick or Treat. So tonight's episode is to Nick or Treat what the Fright Before Christmas was to Nickmas. This is the review that I've really been looking forward to. I've wanted to talk about this episode for a while now, and I'm very excited to finally get to it. It's one of the creepiest episodes in all of Nickelodeon history, and the only episode I've reviewed that's actually really horrifying. I still think the Angry Beavers Halloween special, The Day the World Got Really Screwed Up, is the funniest of the Halloween specials, but this one is definitely the best all around. If you want to consider it a Halloween special, that is. Most people do, because we weren't going to get a traditional Halloween episode from this show. It would be really bizarre to see these characters trick-or-treating. I don't know why I'm sitting here talking as if the show or episode is a mystery when you can clearly see the title. So of course, I'm talking about the Avatar episode, The Puppetmaster. While in the Fire Nation, the gang meets a mysterious old woman. We begin on a shot of the moon, and the characters are telling spooky stories around the campfire while in this creepy forest. They meet Hama, this really creepy old lady. There's just something off about her right from the beginning. Then they find out that people in this town have been mysteriously disappearing. So right off the bat, the episode does a great job of setting its dark, creepy tone. I get chills just listening to Katara's story. And we don't even get to see any of that. All we see is her telling the story. But the way the camera moves around her face and the atmosphere and the way the characters react, it's just unsettling. You can't help but get a little creeped out yourself. But don't let me fool you into thinking it's all creepy. There are some pretty funny lines in this episode that do a great job of lightening the mood in all the right places. My personal favorite is when Toph suggests that maybe the moon spirit is behind all the kidnappings and that it's just turned evil, to which Sokka gets hilariously defensive of. He claims that she rules the sky with lunar goodness. His ex-girlfriend's dead. And of course, I have to talk about the bloodbending. I mentioned it in my Korra Season 3 review, but I'll kinda say it again here. No one was expecting this show to actually go through with such a creepy concept. Sure, fans speculated that, oh hey, technically you could probably bend someone's body using their bodily fluids. But we all assumed it was too gross or too graphic or too weird for them to put it in the show. Especially because at this point, it's the third season. If we didn't see some sort of bodily fluid bending by now, it wasn't very likely to happen, right? Wrong. Very, very wrong. The writers shocked everyone with this. And what's so great is that you have this episode where there's an obvious twist being set up. It's not that big a stretch to assume Hama is the one kidnapping the people. Even after it's revealed that she's a good guy, I'm sure a lot of people were still very skeptical and could have predicted that ending. But the fact that she was a bloodbender and exactly what bloodbending entails, no one could have seen that coming. Not to mention the twist that she's not only a waterbender, but a waterbender from the southern tribe. Plus, a show like Avatar is written so well that you genuinely can't tell if Hama is gonna end up being a good guy or a bad guy. And speaking of her being a bad guy, she is actually the only waterbending antagonist in the original series. No, seriously. Think about it. Yeah, the Master in the North was kind of a jerk to Katara, but he wasn't an antagonist. So that in of itself makes this episode really unique. And her backstory is just really chilling. It's understandable why she'd turn into a crazy old witch. But back to bloodbending. The concept alone is just so messed up. But then when you add the veins that pulsate out of bloodbenders and all the squishy noises and just the involuntary jerky movements of the people under her control, they do a fantastic job of showing the audience that this bending art is really and seriously not something that should be trifled with. It's one thing for Katara to learn bloodbending and say, oh well, I'll only save it for really dangerous bad guys or something like that. But no. It's actually like this moral dilemma of controlling someone's body. Plus, they gave it the limitation that it can only be done on a full moon, though that wears off in about 100 years. This episode is legitimately scary, and I don't mean in like a jump scare kind of way. No, what makes it so terrifying is because of how real this universe feels. It is so well developed and well written that the characters almost seem real, which makes you think, what would it be like if someone had this power in real life? How creepy would it be to live in that world? Sure, living in this universe, you run the risk of getting elements and boomerangs thrown in your face. And that's all well and good. But the thought of someone controlling your bodily fluids to make you involuntarily spasm about and attack your friends? Yeah, I'm not really sure I'd want to live in that universe anymore. And lastly, this episode ends on a downer. It's one of those plots where the villain wanted you to stoop down to their level, and just by doing that, they've won. Katara now knows bloodbending. That's something that she can never unlearn. Hama planted an evil seed of dark bending deep inside of Katara, and it will stay with her, whether she uses it or not. And what's the very last thing we see? Katara crying over this fact. If that doesn't send chills down your spine, I don't know what will. This episode is incredibly creepy and has enough twists and turns to be a corn maze. The comedy and the connections to other episodes are good as well. We finally get to find out exactly what was the story behind that ship that Aang and Katara explored way back in the first two-parter of the series. It's not necessarily the best episode of Avatar, but, I mean, come on, it's an episode of Avatar. Why aren't you watching it right now? In all seriousness, though, this is a great episode to watch around Halloween, especially because it's fairly self-contained, though it references older episodes, and still contributes to the overall narrative by teaching Katara bloodbending. You really don't need much context to this episode other than the fact that Aang and the gang are traveling in the Fire Nation. And that is Nick or Treat. I hope you guys enjoyed this and have a happy Halloween. Wait a minute. Today's not Halloween, it's the day before. Well, that can't be right. There must be one more review then. Huh, I wonder what it is. Pieguyrulz?